Howdy all, grab yourselves a beer, it's time to talk Path of Exile. I made a rough guide earlier as to how I was able to afford the Headhunter unique belt in the Betrayal League, and with some of these tricks and a bit more determination, a little bit more discipline, I could have got myself a lot more currency, probably could have managed a Mirror of Kalandra if I'd wanted to. The guide was a bit too long and it felt a bit too rough, and I thought I'd split it up. And this guide focuses only on those parts of currency generation that matter on the first day of the league. So the second part of this video will deal with strategies for making currency in a mature league and also in the first week. But this is just about strategies for getting yourself currency on the first day. So day one of a league is an opportunity for huge economic rewards. It's an opportunity to set yourself up for the entirety of the league. And often players that are able to make perhaps 1 exalt per 2 hours of regular gameplay can make 3 exalts an hour if they really focus themselves on the first day. Day 1 is also, however, an opportunity to take it slow and play around and enjoy the new league mechanics, to perhaps test out a new or rebalanced skill at a relaxed pace. And it's very important to say that you need to pick one of these. There's absolutely nothing wrong with making the decision that you want to focus on experiencing the new league while it's fresh, and you just want to play at your own pace on day one. Nothing wrong with that. Make your own mind up. It's your call. Lots of players will get stuck while leveling, and they will want to buy gear to speed progress. And if you're ahead of the curve, you will have gear to sell. One of the things about Path of Exile is that an absolutely staggering amount of items drop, and although a very small amount of those are actually really strong items, plenty of them will be serviceable. So while you're leveling through the axe, you might pick up a weapon that's got, double and a half the fizz damage of typical weapons that people have got at that level, or maybe you'll pick up a Veil skill that is popular to use. And all of these things can be exactly the boost that another player needs in order to jump their character past one of the difficulty spikes in the leveling curve. So for instance, if you're in a level 60 zone and you get a mediocre helm drop, but it's got dexterity and it's got cold and fire resists on it, and it's already 4-linked, that might be exactly what some level 44 player needs in order to be able to beat Innocence. And continue progressing through for their push to maps. As a result, that player will overpay for that item to have it now. And this goes double, even triple for powerful leveling unique items like Goldrum, Arumvarax, the Resist Rapier, or Tabula Rasa. The same thing will happen with when you get into maps with mid-map tier resist jewelry. A simple 50 life and 90 resist ring that you would sell straight to the vendor in a mature league like Betrayal League is at now will be worth quite a bit early on. It's actually fully rational for these players to overpay a lot as well. And this is something that I had to teach myself when I was not so much a brand new player, but when I was just starting to get to the point that I was trying to get to maps on day 2 of the league. At that point, when I was in that sort of second or third tier of players pushing through progress, I would feel, it feels so wasteful to spend 4 Chaos Orbs buying this piece of garbage jewelry that I'm just going to replace in a few levels. But it's actually fully rational for them to do it, because it means that if it saves them 15 minutes in the leveling process, when they get to level cap, or not to level cap, but to mapping level, they'll get 15 minutes more time to farm in maps, time to farm in delves. And 4 Chaos Orbs is a very low price to pay for that. So for this reason, this guide is going to focus on leveling fast to exploit this. I'll return to this later, but it's very important that you try to be not necessarily amongst the very first to get to maps, but you want to be there quickly. Now, a minority of the players that are stuck in early content will have had some very lucky drops. Maybe they've had an Exalted Orb drop in Act 4, maybe they had a Divine Orb, an Annulment, or maybe they've just had some good divination cards that they can't yet use because, who can complete a set of them early on? So in those cases, trade can be quite messy, and it's generally the case that some of the very most powerful leveling items, things like tabula rasa, 20 quality faster attacks gem, can trade for an extraordinary amount early on, mainly because it's not really possible to negotiate trades that that result in a player getting everything that they want. You can't give change for an exalted orb, for instance. But most players won't have these fluke drops. They'll have gumball currency. So it won't be a case of you've got 5 chaos orbs. You might have 2 chaos orbs, 6 orbs of alchemy, 1 Val orb, and 16 chromatic orbs. My suggestion here is be very open to negotiation on prices that you set for items that you get early on in the league. You just want things to move fast. They're going to be worthless in a day, so if you're asking 3 chaos orbs for a nice double resist and low life ring, and someone offers you 1 chaos, 2 elks, and 1 Val, you could go and check out the prices at this stupendously useful resource, poe.ninja, which you may be familiar with if you've seen any of my other videos. You may decide to go there and say, oh, that only adds up to 2.8 chaos. At that stage of the league, I want to negotiate for more. No, just be fine, accept what they offer if it's even remotely in the ballpark. You want to transact fast so that you can get back to leveling, get back to mapping if you're in maps, or so that you can get to maps as quickly as possible. The other key thing to remember, I already mentioned this, but be disciplined and skip the new league mechanic. This can be hard because there will be people that get miracle drops from it. We've seen in the Betrayal League, one person very early on in the league got an absolute miracle drop of 3 Mirrors of Kalandra from Leo when he drops currency. Now, this is the sort of thing that, that's a lot more currency than I've ever had. It's a lot more than I have in Standard League. Or you'll find there'll be 6 or 8 posts on Reddit where someone's gone, oh my god, this new league mechanic is so broken, I just got a Headhunter from it. The thing is that there's potentially 250,000 people logging in to the game on the first day, and some of them statistically are going to get lucky. Maybe 50,000 of those players reach the sorts of levels where premium currencies can drop, and out of that 50,000 players, well, some of them are going to get flukes. There's going to be mirrors, there's going to be exalts, there's going to be headhunters if they can drop, and there's going to be whatever the brand new super rare item of the league is. We don't know what that's going to be, but these things are going to exist, and chances are you're not going to see them. So for every person that gets a headhunter from interacting with the new league mechanic, there are going to be dozens and dozens and dozens and hundreds and thousands of people who are spending time experiencing the new league and getting very little from it. There is absolutely nothing wrong with diverging from this strategy to experience the new league, but I'm just saying that you're going to be choosing between success and fun. You're going to be balancing these two. Early league success versus that sense of wonder, that sense of exploration, and you really just need to choose your own balance. This video is going to focus on the strategy of optimizing for success, and if you want to diverge from that, by all means do. So you're going to need to do some serious preparation. And one of the first things that I recommend is looking at players that are better than you at leveling quickly. This is Zirin. He is a popular Path of Exile streamer, and he has come up with an absolutely magnificent guide where he does commentary over a 4.25 hour run to Kitava. Now, I'm nowhere near 4.25 hour Kitava pace. I typically get there more in about 7 hours. So I can learn a lot from watching his strategies, and I highly recommend checking out this video if you haven't already seen it. Alternately, if you're someone that is that's a bit closer to my level, then you can learn from someone like me. And if you're someone that's miles behind, practice is going to be your best bet. But in any case, this video is a phenomenal resource, and I will link to it below. In terms of other preparation required, You want to have a leveling plan that does not rely upon gear. So there's a whole lot of skills that only really come into themselves, that can be very, very powerful actually, but they only really come together when you have a 6 link, when you have a specific unique weapon that may not be available early in the game at all. And you want to avoid these strategies and go for a strategy that works with absolute rubbish gear. If you do watch the Zirin video that I'm linking here, and I will warn you, it is 4¼ hours long, I've watched it all twice and found it to be excellent, then you will see that he goes with Stormbrand. Stormbrand, at the time that I'm recording this video, is absolutely brokenly overpowered for leveling, but I think everyone in the Path of Exile community pretty much expects it's going to be nerfed, and it's going to be nerfed hard for leveling. It may still be an excellent, very powerful skill at the end of the nerfs, but we don't know that as yet. What you want to do is decide upon the build that you want to play when you get to endgame, and then start out by leveling a build that is the same class. So for instance, if you want to play as an occultist, Hand of Wisdom in Action, Molten Strike character, which is a very powerful build in the Betrayal League, but also one that's completely dependent upon crafting a full set of energy shield gear, grabbing a whole lot of intelligence stacking items, all sorts of things that you just simply cannot get early in a league. You want to pick a build that's the same class, not necessarily a cultist, but it does need to be a witch, and you want to then level as some other witch build that is optimized for having no gear. At the moment, that would be Elementalist Stormbrand or an occultist cold damage over time build, so the Vortex type characters that were very popular at the start of Betrayal. And then when you get to the point that you've started to amass enough enough currency for your true build to function, at that point, respec. 60 regret orbs may seem like a lot, but remember you get 20 of them for free while you're leveling from the Books of Regret that you'll pick up from quest rewards, and really it's only a few minutes of efficient targeted farming in order to amass your 60 regret orbs. So you want to plan all of this out, you plan your build out beforehand. You want to know the passive nodes that you're going to be picking up. You don't need to necessarily stick exactly to these. It's pretty common for you to say, realize, oh, I must pick up dexterity nodes while I'm leveling because I have a skill that requires a lot of dexterity. But then if RNG falls in certain ways, you might then wind up with an excellent dexterity amulet and 2 rings that have got dexterity on them that you pick up in Act 3 and that you never really want to get rid of because they're so much better than everything else that's dropping. And in that context, you can diverge from your original plan and say, okay, I'm not going to pick up this dexterity node because I no longer need them. But what you do need to know in advance is the general texture of your passive tree and what nodes are critical to rush to. In Zirin's video here, he rushes towards the Templar Elemental Spellcaster nodes that are on the far left of the tree. He rushes towards Elemental Overload, and then from there starts fleshing out life and extra damage. But he picks up some very important ones very early on. It then goes for some brand nodes as well. And you want to have your general passive tree planned and also your ascendancy order planned. Then additionally, you want to know the 4-link colors that you're shooting for. And you want to know this before you start because you want to set up a loot filter in which those 4-link, any item that is 4-linked and has those colors is highlighted as a premium drop. So for instance, if in today's meta you're planning to go Stormbrand, linked to Added Lightning, linked to Controlled Destruction, linked to Elemental Focus, which is a blue 4-link, but you then also, so you would then have blue 4-linked items coming up as a Chaos Orb tier drop in your loot filter. But then additionally, you might decide you can compromise and use a blue green item where you drop, for instance, you might drop Elemental Focus and put in added cold damage, or you might drop Added Lightning and put in added cold damage. In either case, you decide that you can function perfectly with blue, 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 green. And so in that case, you might might set up your filter so that it shows all triple blue, single green 4 links as being a drop that is worth paying attention to, but perhaps not one with sound. You want to hide 4 links that are miles away from your colours. So again, to take this example of Stormbrand character that may not be relevant at all in the 3.6 meta, if you've got you may have no use whatsoever for a red, 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 blue 4 link, and so you may just say, okay, you're not going to treat that as a 4 link in your loot filter. And you can configure all of these things well in advance and be ready for all of them. Of course, you still will pick up a powerful unique item such as Goldrum if it drops red, 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 blue, and you'll be very happy to use that. But it's a matter of just deciding what your priority things are that need to be shown to you. You want to have a plan for your route through the axe. So again, to take this excellent tutorial video by Zirin, you'll see that if you watch this, you'll notice that he knows exactly where he's going, which of the optional quests he's doing and when, and importantly, which ones he's not doing and why. And so these are other things that you really want to have all planned in advance. Be a bit flexible on when you ascend. I tend to ascend later than most elite races, and that's because I'm not as confident in the labyrinth as the genuinely very best players are. So I do it when I'm powerful enough, but if you watch Zizarin's video, he goes through the normal labyrinth before even doing Dominus in Act 3. And he's just that confident that he knows all of the attacks that can kill him, and so he's like, okay, I'm going to do that. So that's the things to keep in mind for leveling up to Kitava. You also may wish to do some practice runs of leveling and running early maps in absolute and utter trash gear. And in softcore, you can go full glass cannon too, because there's basically no consequence for dying. You can do Act 10 with 2,500 hit points and with some of your resists as low as 30. And actually, that's normally what I'll have when I start going into maps on softcore. Hardcore, you'll need to do things a bit differently. But one of the things that you'll learn from running very, very, very undergeared is how to dodge monsters and what attacks are truly dangerous. So you'll want to set up your loot filter as we've been discussing, and then you'll also want to work out your Atlas strategy. And I'm talking about your early Atlas strategy here. You'll want to know if this impacts your Atlas exploration phase. So when I'm talking about your Atlas exploration phase, in a mature league, you'll generally have a setup where you've been pretty much everywhere on the Atlas of Worlds. You may very deliberately, now I'm not doing that in this league, but you may very deliberately decide, for instance, that you're not doing any tier 15 maps except for Tower, or that you're not doing any tier 16 maps except for having a specific Elder map that you really like. And that's entirely... there's plenty of reasons to do that. The key thing is that you need to know this well in advance so that you can plan your initial Atlas exploration around it. If, for instance, you've decided, and I don't recommend this, but let's just say that you do it, you decide that your plan for the league is to farm tier 2 armory maps. And so you're going to do absolutely no... you're going to run... you're going to run all the tier 1 maps, you're then only going to run Armory as a tier 2, and then you're going to start running all the other tier 3s and up. And so that every tier 2 that drops for you is an Armory. Now don't do this, but if you were going to do that, that may well impact your decisions when you're exploring the Atlas of Worlds early on. I'm going to work to the assumption that you are completing all white and all yellow maps on the Atlas, and then you're strategically completing red maps. So in my case, I have completed all of the red maps, but you may very well decide that you don't want to do all of them, and these strategies will work either way. You want to, while you're leveling, save up all of your chance orbs, because Zana, in your hideout, will sell a whole lot of maps to you each day.
Need a map?
Now, at this stage of a league, you'll notice there's lots of red maps that she's selling. She's offering to sell me a lair map, Primordial Pool, Factory, Terrace, Dig. Lots of high tier maps, and a lot of these are more expensive than is the market rate. However, the low tier maps that she's selling are denominated in chance orbs. So she's got an atoll map for 3 chance orbs, she's got a residence map, she's got a cage map, and she's got a barrows map. And she's also got some yellow maps which will vary. Tier 6 maps are denominated in chance orbs, tier 7 and up are denominated in alchemy orbs. You will generally want to be buying everything that Zana is selling early in the league. She will pretty much everything she sells will be low tier maps, and there'll be things that will help you spread your atlas, spread out the area of the atlas that you've got access to. So, for instance, you might start out, you run all 4 tier 1 maps, because normally through completing the axe I will get all 4 tier 1 maps, but I won't get all of the tier 2s from running those tier 1s, and I will then go and run what I've got, and then use Zana to fill the holes, and also use Zana just to supply even more maps so that I don't run out. I'll then hit all my tier 3s, and again, Zana will fill some of the holes. Others, I'll just have to wait a few more days until I'm able to fill them. And this strategy, I generally will run my highest tier map first at any time, unless I haven't done the tier immediately below it. So, for instance, if I've done even one tier 1, let's say that I've completed half of the white maps. I've done, a bunch of tier 1s, a bunch of tier 2s, all the tier 3s, just a couple of tier 4s, and just a couple of tier 5s. If I have a tier 6 drop, I will go and run it, and then if I get a tier 7 drop from that, I'll run it, and I won't even bother filling in the holes in the tier 2s and tier 3s yet, because I'm confident Zana will eventually sell them to me. Things can be a little bit different in solo self-found, where filling those holes can be harder. And if you're playing solo self-found, you don't have, basically this video doesn't apply to you, because the entire strategy of playing in solo self-found is different. You're not trying to amass a big pool of currency early in the league. Instead, you'll be targeting specific items that define your build. So, the reason for this is that if you get quite lucky and have, say, a cartographer's strongbox drop, or you get just a good run, you run hot on map drops, you will then be in a position to sell a lot of maps. And early on in the league, maps are worth a lot more than they are late in the league. If we quickly jump back to pathofexile.ninja, quickly jump back to web browser here and to the PoE Ninja website, which is a trade aggregation website that lists prices of items. It contains estimates, and I would take some of these with a grain of salt. But it contains estimates for prices of every map that's available in the game in a given league. And perhaps if you've been playing in the Betrayal League, you'll notice prices are historically low. The only league in which maps have been cheaper than this one was the Harbinger League, in which Harbinger orbs were extremely common. And there's a bunch of reasons for that, but basically the key impact that this has is that by the end of the league, you're not really able to profitably sell maps. However, early on, you can sell maps and you can make an enormous amount of currency doing so. One of the most important parts of the Atlas of Worlds is Zana's Atlas modifiers. And here, the thing that really is transformative to early league economy is this option, Shaped, tiers 1 to 5. You put in a rare map of tier 5 or below, and it opens a version of your map that's 5 tiers higher with random mods. If you can unlock this so early in the league that tier 10 maps are still valuable, you'll be able to turn all of your tier 5 maps into tier 10s for the cost of 2 Chaos Orbs each. There'll be random mods, so there'll be some that you will just not be able to complete. You might, if you were, say, a Fireball character, and then you wound up with an Elemental Reflect map, you just may not be able to beat that at all. So you'll have a little bit of wastage, but in general, when you run a tier 10 map, it's my experience that on average you get about half a tier 11 drop, about 2/3 of a tier 10, and about 3/4 of a tier 9, and then you'll get sort of some of lower tiers as well. These will really add up. These add up to a lot of currency when you're paying 2 chaos and a tier 5 map for each one. So one of the key things that I suggest you do very early on in the league is to race to unlock that Zana mod as quickly as you can. This requires that you get far enough into Zana's quest line, this is the Map Fragments quest line, to have completed a tier 10 Elder influenced map. You should rush this on day one of the league, and if you're confident, and this is one of those things where you have to be able to honestly assess your skill, because I can't do this. If you're confident, you also want to try and rush this one, which requires you to complete a tier 15 Elder influenced map, which will then allow you to continue the same process, but turning your tier 10 maps, shooting them up to tier 15 with random mods, which is an absolutely enormous source of early tier 16 maps at a point in the league where tier 16 maps at the moment are of the order of 12 chaos orbs, but early league they can be half an exalt. So those Zana mods, they may not be present in a future league, but if they are, they're extremely lucrative. And needless to say, this heavily advantages reflect immune builds, and that was a big part of my decision in the Betrayal League to play an Arc Trap character. Now, Arc Traps are not the only character that's capable of doing those any mod, and since then I've tried other experimental builds like this terrible elemental hit Scion that really has just been an absolute dismal failure for me. But hey, that's what happens when I design my own builds rather than following established ones. But part of the reason I didn't do this as my league starter was because I knew that this character cannot beat an elemental reflect map. Now, the other part of your day one investments, you're going to be running maps quickly, and you're going to be rushing to higher tier maps and looking to sell higher tier maps. Most people then, will mostly transact in Chaos Orbs, and then we'll look to trade those Chaos Orbs into other players to get Exalted Orbs. Now, you can do much better than Exalts. What you're wanting to do is find items that are very valuable in a mature league, but that are either too precious to use early on, or that are too expensive for more than a tiny handful of players to afford them early on. Some classic examples are, well, Exalted Orbs themselves, but there's lots of people buying them for the purpose of hoarding them for the future. Other items, though, are Orbs of Annulment, Glyphic Fossils, and for that matter, other premium fossils. Glyphic Fossils seem to be the best one because they're not something people really use until they've got the right enchantment on a helmet, and then they'll spam Glyphic Fossils to try to get absolutely staggeringly insane Molten Strike helmets or other things like that. Monstrous Treasure Prophecies, and if you want to know why they're so useful, have a look at my video on an introduction to high investment mapping. The Parandus Mana Map, Fragments of Mirrors. So this is, you're not going to be able to afford a Mirror of Kalandra early on in most cases, but there is the Immortal Divination card, there is the Mirror Shard, there is the new 7 Years of Bad Luck Divination card. We don't know where this is going to drop, but it is from the... it's coming out in the new patch, in the Synthesis League, and it is a divination card for a Shard of a Mirror, so 1/20th of a mirror. From memory, it's a 13 card set, so these are going to be worth... in a mature league, these are going to be worth more than half of an Exalted Orb. But early on, I think it's a sort of thing you can probably buy for 20 Chaos Orbs if people are getting them early on. So yeah, there's also Fragments of the Headhunter Belt. So Headhunter Belt, if you've never played with this before, it's a kind of ridiculous belt. What it does is it grants you the mods of rare monsters that you slay, and rare monsters have some ridiculous mods. Soul Eater is the most powerful of them, but even just some of the lesser ones can be things like 2000 extra energy shield, or a massively more powerful variant on an acceleration shrine. This belt is often people's league goal, so someone will play all league with a goal of acquiring that, and that actually was the case for me in Betrayal League. I just haven't really used the belt much because the character that I was acquiring it for has been terrible. But there are divination cards that are fragments of the Headhunter belt, and have a quick look at the various divination cards list. Again, this website, Path of Exile, poe.ninja, is incredibly useful. You will have the Doctor Divination card is 1/8 of a Headhunter belt. There is the Fiend Divination card, which is 1/11 of a Corrupted Headhunter belt. And there is the Nurse Divination card, which is 1/8 of a Doctor, and so 1/64 of a Headhunter belt. These really, really, really appreciate and value early in a league. So at the moment, the Doctor's 4.8 exalts. The time that I was compiling my set, they were more expensive. They were, I believe, they were 6.2. The time that I was looking to get my Headhunter, Headhunter usually drops towards the end of a league, but early in a league, however, the Doctor card can be as low as 3 exalts, and the attitude of the people that sell them, their approach is thinking, I have just picked up what will be my luckiest drop of the entire league. I'm going to sell it now, and I'm going to use that in order to massively speed up my ability to farm more loot early on. That's the mindset of the people that are selling it, and there's enough of those people that are just looking to get rid of it quickly that the belt will be the pieces of the belt will be available at a lower price relative to exalts than it is later on in the league. And so for that reason, yeah, pick up fractions of Headhunter. They will increase in value more than Exalted Orbs will. Anyways, that's my strategies for using the first day of the league to set yourself up currency-wise. Do, of course, remember that it is a balancing act between having fun and getting to as large pool of currency as quickly as you can. And you're just going to need to find your own balance on that. Don't burn yourself out, trying to strive for perfection, only to find that when you get to your goals, that it's taken any joy and any fun out of the game. Ultimately, you're playing because you're having fun, and if you're not having fun, then you should give it a break. But that's all I've got to say on the first day strategy. Mature league strategies will come later.